Hello, and welcome to the vocabulary lesson for the Nepal Part 2 conversation. Remember from the first conversation, the Nepal Part 1 conversation, that Joe and I have been talking about our trips to Nepal. Me with my boyfriend at the time in 2001, and Joe with his girlfriend at the time in 2004. Okay, let's begin. I start off this second conversation saying, wow, that's pretty crazy that you had a face-to-face encounter with a Maoist on your trek. Wow, that's a word that where I'm showing a surprised emotion. So I could have said something else like, my gosh, or my God. Wow. Wow, that's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. Pretty in this situation is basically very, very crazy. So what I'm saying is, wow, that's just unbelievable. I can't believe that you had a face-to-face encounter with a Maoist on your trek. Now, face-to-face, that's an idiom, and it basically means person to person. An example of face-to-face would be, I would much rather talk face-to-face with someone than talk on the phone. I just like speaking person to person better than speaking on the phone. That's really true. So I'm saying to him, wow, I just can't believe that you actually spoke face-to-face or person to person with a Maoist, that you had this encounter being meeting. And if you remember from the first conversation, Maoists are a group of people in Nepal who were wanting to change the government. So on his trek, he had this person-to-person meeting with a Maoist. If you remember also from the first conversation, trek is like an intense hike, a long hike, a hike over many days. Okay, then Joe goes on to say, well, it really wasn't very scary. Actually, the ones I met, they were pretty friendly. Here's pretty again being used like very. They were pretty friendly. They were very friendly. But I don't know. Maybe they were on their best behavior. On their best behavior. So what he's saying here is, the Maoist that I spoke with, he didn't scare me. He seemed pretty friendly. He seemed very friendly. But maybe he was on his best behavior. Maybe, or Maoists in general, I guess, not just the one. Maybe they were on their best behavior. Maybe they were acting very nice. Or maybe they were being very nice. Maybe they were being polite. Or maybe they were being very good. On their best behavior. An example of on their best behavior would be, I've noticed from teaching children that they can be on their best behavior when they're wanting something. Maybe they think that being very good will get them what they want. On their best behavior. So I go on to say, yeah, maybe. I'm agreeing with him. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe they were being very nice. They were being very good. They were on their best behavior. Yeah is informal or casual for yes. So I'm agreeing with him. Then I go on to say, we didn't see them at all on our trek. So I'm saying, I didn't see any of the Maoists when Tim and I went on our trek. Tim, my boyfriend at the time. See 'em. Now, is short for them. So you will never see this in written English, but you will definitely hear it in conversational English. It's just short for them. So I'm saying, yeah, we didn't see them. We did not see any Maoists on our trek. Moving along, I go on to say, in fact, the only trace of the Maoists, so I'm saying the only sign or the only thing to show that Maoists had been there that I remember seeing was being on a bus going over to a national park, national being like a Nepali government park, and looking out the window and seeing this old abandoned being empty, burned out bus. Burned out. Now that's describing the bus as having had a fire on it. So the bus had a fire. It was a burned out bus on the side of the road. And apparently we were told later that the Maoists had stopped the bus and gotten everyone off and then burned it. Okay, so I'm saying, I didn't see any Maoists on my trek, but I did see that there was an old burned out bus on the side of the road. I was, on a bus myself, passing this old burned out bus, going to a national park, going to a Nepali government park. That's the only sign that I knew that Maoists had been in the area, or the only trace, the only thing to show me that Maoists had been there. I never actually saw Maoists face to face. So yeah, and then I'm saying that the Maoists had stopped the bus and gotten everyone off and then burned it. So they had set fire to it. So then Joe goes on to say, at least they got everyone off. So he's saying, well, basically that's good. They got everyone off the bus. Then I say, yeah, but I think it wasn't even until after we left Nepal and got back to America that I started reading that all hell broke loose with the Maoists. So I'm agreeing with him. I'm saying, yeah, it is good. They got everyone off the bus. And it wasn't until I left the country, I actually left Nepal and flew back to America, that I started reading on the internet that all hell had broken loose with the Maoists. All hell broke loose. So basically what I'm saying is that I'd started reading that there was a lot of trouble with the Maoists, or there were a lot of problems with the Maoists, or there was a lot of confusion with the Maoists. All hell broke loose. An example of this would be, I can remember that I was living in Bangkok, Thailand when the bird flu or SARS broke out. All hell broke loose for a short period of time. There were a lot of problems and confusion about the disease. All hell broke loose. Then Joe goes on to say, yeah, that was actually just after I left. So he's saying, yeah, all hell broke loose, or all these problems, all this confusion started after he left Nepal. And then I say, oh, okay, well that makes sense then, why there was more of a presence there. So what I'm saying is, okay, that I understand now why there was more of a presence, of meaning why there were more Maoists that you saw when you were there compared to me, since I didn't see any. Joe says, yeah, agreeing with me. Then I say, when you were there, I should say. So I'm just correcting myself, because I had been saying, oh, that makes sense why there was more of a presence of the Maoists there. Why you saw more of the Maoists when you were more of the Maoists there. And I correct myself, oh, I mean when you were there. That's all I'm saying. I'm just correcting myself. And I go on to say, but I mentioned in the first conversation is just simply short for . So I say, but our trek sounds pretty different. So our trek sounds very different. Ours meaning mine and Tim's. How many days was your trek again? I'm asking Joe. And he says, it was 13 days total. So he's just saying, oh, it's 13 days altogether. 13 days total. And I say, oh, okay. Mine was 12, so just 1 day shy of yours. 1 day shy. Basically, I'm saying, okay, mine was 1 day less. 1 day shy of yours. An example of this would be My birthday is 3 days shy of one of my high school friends. My birthday is August 8th, and hers is August 11th. So in this case, I'm saying 3 days shy. The idiom is 1 day shy, but I think you get the point. It's less. And then I go on to say, yeah, it started off on the wrong foot for me. So I'm saying, yeah, my trek started off on the wrong foot. Started off on the wrong foot. Meaning, yeah, it began badly for me. Or, yeah, it did not start well for me. Started off on the wrong foot. An example of this, my first day of school usually got started off on the wrong foot. I would always come home with a big headache and just not be feeling good. Started off on the wrong foot. And that's true. I mean, that was either college, university, or even in high school. Yeah, I would always come home with a headache. Okay, then Joe goes on to say, what happened? And I say, well, apparently I ate something that didn't agree with me and made me sick as hell to my stomach. Didn't agree with me. Well, apparently I ate something that wasn't good for me or wasn't good for my body. Didn't agree with me. For example, sometimes when I eat late at night, the food doesn't agree with me because it can make my stomach hurt the next day. Didn't agree with me or doesn't agree with me, as in my example. Made me sick as hell. Sick as hell is an idiom meaning very ill, not, or basically I'm saying, it made me feel very ill. It made me not feel good to my stomach. Sick as hell. An example of that would be, I got sick as hell one time when I was living in Bangkok, Thailand. I ended up having tonsillitis and was so sick that I had to stay in the hospital for a few days. I was sick as hell. So then Joe says, when you were trekking or... And I say, no, the night before. And he laughs. Oh no. He's imagining, I'm sure, that I'm extremely sick. I'm very sick and I'm about to go on this trek. This 12-day trek. So then I say, yeah. So that's how it started off. And the next morning we were supposed to leave, or in other words, we should have left at 7 a.m. on the dot. But, of course, that got pushed back because I was so sick. I was sick as a dog. On the dot. Okay, so what I'm saying is, this is how my trek started. I'm sick, right? We're supposed to leave the next morning, or we should have left at 7 a.m. on the dot. 7 a.m. exactly is what that means. 7 a.m. and no later. On the dot. An example of on the dot would be, I noticed that when I lived in Japan, the trains would always arrive on the dot. They were very exact. I loved that about Japan. So yeah, we're supposed to leave on the dot. And I go on to say, but of course that got pushed back. So in other words, it ended up being later. Pushed back, ended up being later because I was so sick. I was sick as a dog. Sick as a dog here means basically the same as sick as hell. Very ill. I was very ill. I was not feeling good. I was sick as a dog. An example of sick as a dog could be, sometimes I have felt sick as a dog after a night of drinking too much. I have ended up feeling so bad that I'm surprised I haven't completely quit drinking altogether. Sick as a dog. You would think I would learn my lesson. And then Joe says, oh man. Now, oh man here, you'll hear a lot of people say, man, it's just is a filler word. Because I'm a woman, he's saying it to me, but it doesn't really mean anything. Just kind of showing sympathy, like, oh, wow, oh, man. He says, did you consider not going? So did you think about not going? Now going, I think I mentioned this in the first conversation, the Nepal part 1 conversation. Going here is short for going. You won't see going written in written English, but only in conversation you'll hear it. It's just shortened, just cut off. And I say, oh yeah, I'm agreeing with him. Oh yeah, I did think about not going. But Tim talked me into it. So I'm saying Tim, my boyfriend, he got me to do it anyway. And Joe laughs. Well, that's good because you know what? You were probably thankful in the end because you had such a good time, I'm sure. So he's saying, it's good you went because I'm sure now or after the trek you were thankful or you were glad, you were happy after the trek. You were thankful in the end because you had such a good time, I'm sure. So he's saying, I'm sure you're happy you did it because afterwards, I'm sure you realized you had a good time. And I say, I did. I mean, it was tough though. Tough as in difficult. I'm saying, yeah, I did have a good time, but it was difficult for me. I go on to say first of all, I started out, I was sick. I just was not physically prepared for it. So I'm saying, in other words, my body was not ready for it. I don't do a lot of exercise in general, so it was very difficult for me. And I go on to say, I think it was like the second night there was this windstorm that really freaked me out. I think it was now like here, you may know that like can be used to show like a positive emotion. For example, I like traveling to other countries. It can also be used to compare something. Like, for example, Joe's cooking is so good, it's like eating in a really nice restaurant. But in this situation, I think it was like the second night. Here, this is very common in conversational English to see like used this way or hear like used this way. Basically, it's just an extra word. It doesn't really have any meaning. It's just put in there. It's filler. It doesn't have any meaning. So you don't even really have to pay attention to it. So I say, I think it was like the second night there was this windstorm. So there was this storm, this really strong wind came up. And I say that really freaked me out. Freaked me out. So I'm saying it worried me. It made me scared. It freaked me out. An example of freaked me out would be the first time I saw a mouse in my apartment. It really freaked me out. And I've seen them so many times that I'm surprised they still make me jump and scream. They still do. I know, it's crazy, but... So Joe laughs. And then I say, yeah, it was pretty frightening. So I'm saying it was very scary for me. This windstorm was very scary. Joe says, how high up were you at that time? So he's asking... He's thinking at this point that maybe I'm pretty high up in the mountains since, we are trekking in the mountains. So then I say, we weren't very high. It was just still the second night. So I'm saying we weren't high up at all. It was only the second night. It was just still the second night. And I go on to say, to be honest, so in other words, to tell you the truth, to be honest, I don't remember, but yeah, we weren't that high up. So then Joe says, yeah, well, how high did you go total? So in other words, he's saying, how high did you go all together? And I say, total, as in all together, total, we reached 12,000 feet. And Joe says, yeah, okay. And then I say, yeah, and that was actually, or I'm saying here, really, actually, that was great being that high up. I mean, we got such a great bird's eye view of the valley. So, great or good bird's eye view of the valley. Now, bird's eye view, what I'm saying here is we got such a good view from above of the valley, or we got such a great view from high up of the valley. Bird's eye view. An example of bird's eye view would be, I like to go up in really tall buildings here in San Francisco. I get such a great bird's eye view of the city below. Bird's eye view. So I'm saying, yeah, it was really good being that high up because I got such a great view of the valley. A great view from really high up of the valley. Valley is just a land, or I should say land, below and between mountains. Then Joe says, oh yeah, that's what I noticed, or that's what I saw. Also, when we got up to our highest point meaning area, which was a little over 14,000 feet, I was like in heaven. It was... So, what he's saying is that he noticed as well when he was up really high, over 14,000 feet, he was in heaven. Or he's saying, I was like in heaven. Like here again is just a filler word, so you don't have to pay attention to it. So I was in heaven. I was having a really good time. I was really enjoying myself. I was in heaven. For example, one of the last times I went camping, me and my boyfriend at the time had hiked several miles into the woods. It was so beautiful, so quiet and peaceful that I felt like I was in heaven. I was in heaven. So then I laugh and say, yeah, agreeing with him. And then Joe goes on to say, I was like sitting on top of the world. So what he's saying here is, just like I was in heaven, he's saying I was having a really good time. I was really enjoying myself. Sitting on top of the world. An example of this would be, when I was 22, I went on a cruise to the Bahamas with my cousin. I had such a good time that I felt like I was sitting on top of the world. Sitting on top of the world. So then I laugh and say, yeah, again. Agreeing, I can totally agree to what he's saying about his trek, as I felt the same way. And Joe says, and also at that point, after we got up to the top, so also at that point, or that area, after we got to the top of the mountain, I was no longer worried about altitude sickness. So what he's saying is I was no longer worried. I didn't care about getting altitude sickness. Altitude sickness is a sickness that you can get if you go up a mountain or go up too high too quickly. You can get really bad headaches, for example. So he's saying, yeah, after a certain point, when we got to the top, I just didn't even worry about it anymore. I didn't care. So then he goes on to say, I don't know if anybody had problems with it, in the group that you were traveling with. And I say, no, we didn't. But, of course, we were warned or told. We were warned about it, and one of the things we were warned or told about was to be careful of the alcohol intake. Alcohol intake meaning just drinking alcohol. So Tim and I, being the beer drinkers that we are, didn't heed that warning. So we didn't take heed, we didn't pay attention to that warning. So it's a good thing we didn't get altitude sickness. So what I'm saying is, no, we didn't know of anybody who got altitude sickness or had any problems with it. And yeah, we were told about it, we were warned about it, but we were still drinking even though we were told not to. So even though we didn't take heed or we didn't pay attention to the warning of don't drink, it's a good thing we didn't get altitude sickness. And Joe says, yeah, they pretty much told us the same thing. They said, you probably shouldn't be smoking cigarettes, which, I don't smoke cigarettes, so that was fine. Or he's saying that was okay. And he goes on to say, they said, don't drink too much. And I didn't really drink too much, so that was good. But the other thing they said is, don't go up the mountain too fast. Make sure you stay a night before you get up to the peak. Peak being the top of the mountain. So he's being told, yeah, don't smoke cigarettes, don't drink, and don't go up the mountain too fast. Make sure that you stay a night before you get up to the top of the mountain. And so he goes on to say, at a lower altitude or a lower height being altitude, but one that's pretty or very high up still. And I say, oh, right. And then Joe says, so you can get acclimated. Acclimated means getting used to. So in this situation, getting used to the higher height. Moving along, Joe says, so we did that, but I tell you, when we got up to the peak, I'll tell ya, ya is short for you. So you won't see this in written English, but you will definitely hear it in conversational English. Yeah, short for you. So he says, yeah, I'll tell you, when we got up to the peak, or when we got up to the top of the mountain, there were people who were getting sick. And there were a couple of people, or there were two people, who had to be carried down. So he's saying, yeah, there were people getting sick, and a couple of people had to be carried down, or they had to be taken down the mountain. And I say, oh, geez, that's just a word showing emotion, like, oh, I can't believe what you're saying. Can't believe what you're telling me. And then Joe says, yeah, and one of the guys who was carried down or taken down, I had met him on the way up, and I saw him on the way down, and I asked him, how he was feeling, and he said he was feeling better at that point being time. He was feeling better at that time. But he said the night before he thought his head was going to explode. So, head was going to explode. So in other words, he's saying this guy that he saw, or he met on his way up the mountain, once he got back down the mountain, he saw this guy again. This guy had to be carried down. He had to be taken down because he'd gotten altitude sickness. And he said he was feeling okay at that time, at that point. But the night before, he thought his head was going to explode. So he's saying he felt like his head was going to break open, or he felt like his head was going to burst open. Head was going to explode. For example, sometimes when I get sick, my head hurts a lot in the beginning. Hurts a lot in the beginning of the sickness, when I first get sick. My head can feel like it's going to explode. Head was going to explode. So then I say, oh my God. So I'm showing emotion like, wow, geez, oh my gosh. And Joe says, yeah, very serious headache. So he's saying, yeah, this guy had a really big headache. And I say, wow, showing emotion again, like, geez, oh my gosh. And then Joe says, yeah, so, and then I say, yeah, I mean, there was just me and Tim, and then another woman from, where was she from? Belgium, and a guy from Luxembourg. So we all fared pretty well, except, so I'm saying, yeah, there was just 4 of us in our group. Me, Tim, a woman from Belgium, a guy from Luxembourg, and we all fared pretty well. We all did pretty well. Except, then towards the end, the guy from Luxembourg ended up catching a cold. So in other words, he got sick. He ended up getting sick. He ended up getting sick with a cold. For example, I really don't like catching a cold. I absolutely do not like getting sick. I don't. I become a big baby when I'm sick. So I go on to say, and then to top it off, I caught it from him. Or I got it from him. So I got the cold from him. I caught the cold from him. To top it off. To top it off means in addition to. So what I'm saying is, if you'll remember in the beginning, I'm talking about my trek, how it started off badly because I was feeling sick, or I'd gotten sick in Kathmandu. So I'm saying, to top it off, in addition, here the trek is ending, and to top it all off, in addition to everything that had kind of happened, getting it off to a bad start, I caught it from him. I got this cold from the guy from Luxembourg. To top it off, for example, I was so happy when I finished my master's degree in teaching English to speakers of other languages in 2005. I was so happy when I finished. To top it off, I then got a teaching job in Japan. I was so excited to move there. To top it off. Joe says, ugh. Ugh, just meaning an emotion, like showing a negative feeling, like, oh no. Like, he can't believe it. Gosh, you got sick. You were sick at the beginning and then you got sick at the end. And I say, so that's how I ended the trek. Joe says, yeah. Like, wow, some trek. And then I say, yeah, it was very physically draining for me. So what I'm saying is, it was very tiring for me. And Joe says, yeah. How much did it cost for you guys to do your trek? So he's asking, how much did it cost for you guys? You guys as in Tim and I. How much did it cost for the both of you to do your trek? And I say, to be honest, or to tell you the truth, I really don't remember. But, it wasn't anything astronomical. So I'm saying it wasn't, I don't remember, but it wasn't anything too expensive or too much. It wasn't anything astronomical. And Joe says, yeah. I can't remember either how much we paid, but it was dirt cheap. Dirt cheap. So what he's saying here is he can't remember what he paid for his trek, but it was dirt cheap. It was very cheap. It didn't cost a lot. Dirt cheap. An example of dirt cheap is, it was dirt cheap when I lived in Bangkok. It didn't cost much money at all. I was living in a one-room apartment for about $50 a month, and that included all utilities. Dirt cheap. So then I go on to say, yeah, like, I don't remember how much the trek cost, but I do remember it didn't cost a lot. It was cheap. I'm agreeing with him. And Joe says, yeah, I'll tell you what. Without a doubt, or he's saying definitely, without a doubt, I want to make sure I go back to Nepal and go trekking. I want to go trekking again. Wanna. Wanna is just short for want to. You won't see wanna in written English, but you'll definitely hear it in conversational English. Wanna. And then I say, well, I want to go back to Nepal. I don't know that I want to go trekking. Okay, this concludes the vocabulary lesson for the Nepal Part 2 conversation. You can listen to this a few times, if you need to, in a relaxed way until you have a basic understanding of the vocabulary. Then go to the mini story. Okay, until next time. Hi, this is Kristen Dodds.
And this is Joe Weiss. And we just wanted to let you know that this material has been copyrighted in the year 2008 by Learn Real English, LLC. www.learnrealenglish.com